to get the shot that they want in this situation. They would need someone at midcourt to make the second pass. But let's see, because at the same time, they must hurry but not rush. That's the key.
Night into the game to stop this drill. Could hit the scoreboard.
Long for Ori.
Does anything seem off about this image? I mean, to me, everything seems to be there. You have all 5 players of both teams and the referees on the court, the players on the bench, and the crowd anxiously waiting to see if this last-second buzzer beater goes in. Even the shooter, Robert Horry, a future 7-time NBA champion, is taking the shot. Everything seems to fit the mold of a classic March Madness game, and yet something feels like it's missing. Oh, of course, the scoreboard. How could I have forgotten? CBS hadn't fully introduced a constant scoreboard graphic until 1998. What is the score, by the way? Oh, 62-60. Close game. Pretty standard for Alabama. They averaged about 72 points a game and gave up about 62. But that's the only thing that's normal about this game. Because this team here, Loyola Marymount University, is not normal. You can't compare them to any team in the 1990 NCAA tournament. You can't compare them to any college basketball team in 1990. You can't really even compare them to any team in college basketball ever. The 1990 Loyola Marymount men's basketball team averaged 122.4 points per game, an NCAA Division I record. This is a story about this guy, and this guy, and this guy, and the most radical offense college basketball has ever seen.
A lot of coaches are afraid to do what Paul Westhead does because they don't want to be criticized. It doesn't look like their coach, but as we get along in here, Ron, we'll see. There's a lot of coaching going on both sides.
There has been so much pressure on him over the last week in regard to media attention, questions to be asked, and you know it has taken away some of his concentration.
122-108. That is the average score of a 1990 Loyola Marymount men's basketball game. If I gave you that scoreline without any context, you might rightfully assume that's the average score of a modern NBA game, not the scoreline from a 1990 college basketball game where there are 8 less minutes to score and a slower pace of play. The average college basketball team in the 1989-1990 season scored about 76 points per game. Double that for the 2 teams playing, and your average combined score is, again, about 152 points per game. Here's how many times a Loyola Marymount game had a combined final score lower than this average. Once. Just this game against Alabama. All other final scores easily exceeded 152 total points. In fact, Loyola Marymount themselves scored 152 points or more in a game twice during the season. The offense regularly put up video game-like numbers, almost as if they didn't know you were allowed to slow the game down and feel out your offense. Only one man could have thought up an offensive scheme so basic and yet so efficient. His name was Paul Westhead. It was almost poetic that Paul Westhead found himself coaching a historically fast offense. Following a 10-year stint as the head coach of LaSalle's men's basketball team, Westhead was hired as an assistant to Jack McKinney's Los Angeles Lakers staff after the Lakers failed to hire UNLV coach Jerry Tarkanian. On November 8, 1979, just 13 games into the season, McKinney suffered a near-fatal head injury after getting into a bicycle accident, leaving Westhead as the next man up to fill the head coaching position. Fortunately for Westhead, he just so happened to inherit the beginnings of one of the greatest basketball dynasties of all time, the 1980s Showtime Lakers. With rookie point guard Magic Johnson and legendary big man Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, the Lakers glided through the playoffs en route to winning the 1980 NBA Finals, giving Westhead his first NBA title as a head coach and only his first season. The winning ways quickly faded out, as Magic Johnson was injured throughout the majority of the next season, and the Lakers failed to make back-to-back finals. It was during this period after the 1981 season where Magic began to publicly criticize Westhead's coaching style. Westhead wanted to run an isolated offense focused on Kareem's scoring ability in one-on-one situations, while Magic wanted a quick-paced, fast-break offense centered around speed and scoring. Westhead would promptly be fired soon after these remarks. However, Lakers owner Jerry Buss would claim that the firing was for other reasons. 3 years later, Westhead would find himself as the head coach of Loyola Marymount, an average program in the West Coast Conference who loomed in the shadows of historically big names such as San Francisco and Santa Clara. Westhead was brought in to revive the struggling Lions of Loyola Marymount and establish them as a contender in the conference. Almost immediately, Westhead realized the struggle of attracting big-name players to a small school like Loyola Marymount and needed to find a way to market the team. It was then that Westhead remembered the criticism Magic Johnson threw his way 5 years earlier, and he created the fastest offense college basketball had ever seen. This is the Loyola Marymount run-and-gun offense. It's very simple. On offense, you had one of two options: shoot the open shot or pass to someone who would take an open shot. Ideally, the whole possession would take 7 seconds or less, so there wasn't a need to run a complex play. If you made it, great. If not, you played defense. Scratch that. You played aggressive defense, full court pressure, jumping the passing lanes, anything to try and get the ball back as quickly as possible. If you gave up an open shot, it's fine. That just means you get the ball back, and now you can go back up the court again for another shot. Do that again and again and again and again for 40 minutes straight, or until the opponent is begging for mercy. Congratulations. You just played the world's longest game of purposeful hot potato.
Hot potato, hot potato, hot potato.
Oh, you're fried!
It's so interesting how this style of play works so well and yet is so basic to the average viewer. On paper, it sounds like the college adaptation of 5-year-olds playing YMCA basketball. There isn't much of a strategy, just try and score as many points as you can before the time is up. But when you take a closer look at it, you see just how complex it really is. You are demanding the other team to keep up with you, to play to your style and keep a high tempo, while also forcing some of these untrained college athletes to run up and down the court numerous times without dealing with fatigue or risk giving up an easy bucket. On my left, we have a 1988 game between Loyola Marymount and Wyoming. On my right, a modern game between Virginia and North Carolina. To visualize the pace of play of a Loyola Marymount game, I cherry-picked these two clips of uninterrupted close basketball. By the time Loyola takes and makes its first shot, Virginia has barely crossed the half-court line and hasn't even set up an offensive possession. Loyola immediately sets its full-court press, but isn't able to convert an early stop, while Virginia stalls its offense. Virginia misses 2 consecutive shots, and Loyola is able to eventually force a steal. Already, 2 possessions have passed in the Loyola game compared to 1 in our modern-day offense. Both teams on offense now push ahead. Almost immediately, North Carolina tries to push the ball forward, but is met and has to reset. Loyola push forward and shoot a 3. They miss, but that's okay. They immediately set the trap and force another turnover as Carolina continues to probe. Carolina kicks out to a 3, misses, and gives up the rebound at the same time Loyola pushes forward again and makes the long 2. These clips only took up about 49 seconds of a 40-minute game. If each game kept up this exact pace for the full length of the game, the Loyola Marymount game would end up having an astounding 147 more total possessions compared to the Virginia game. No team should be able to play a high-level basketball game at this pace, but somehow, Loyola Marymount thrived in it. You could see the early signs of the run-and-gun offense during the first few seasons of Westhead's tenure. A 114-101 loss to Gonzaga, a 151-107 win against U.S. International, a 115-93 loss to another Loyola Chicago. The run-and-gun looked potent, but Westhead quickly realized he needed better players for the system to truly become the beast it was meant to be. To do that, Westhead headed back to his roots to pick up 2 Philly-born stars, Bo Kimble and Hank Gathers. Hank and Bo were meant to be a star duo together. Both grew up in North Philadelphia and attended Dobbins Technical High School. As seniors, they formed a formidable duo and led Dobbins to the Public League City Championship. As highly touted recruits, both Gathers and Kimble had many offers to Division I programs, and both eventually committed to the University of Southern California. During their freshman season, Both Kimball and Gathers played very well, with Kimball averaging over 12 points a game and Gathers averaging 8 points and 5 rebounds. Unfortunately, their success never translated to team success, and after an 11-17 season, USC's head coach was fired. After hiring new head coach George Raveling, Raveling gave the players the option to either stay or leave. Hank and Bo never responded, and as a result, Raveling revoked their scholarships, forcing them to find a new program elsewhere. Just 10 miles away from USC's campus, Coach Westhead was preparing the easiest pitch of a lifetime for Hank and Bo to be the stars of his run-and-gun system. The pair just couldn't say no. After sitting out the following season in accordance with transfer rules, Hank and Bo immediately became the stars of Loyola. Their first season in 1988 is still Loyola's best season in program history, after the Lions finished undefeated in conference play with a 28-4 overall record, making the NCAA tournament for the first time since 1980 and advancing to the round of 32. The star duo of Kimball and Gathers each averaged 22 points a game, and the team averaged a whopping 110 points per game, leading all Division I teams. The year after, Hank Gathers truly blossomed into a dominant force, averaging a staggering 33 points and 14 rebounds en route to being named the West Coast Conference's Player of the Year. Again, however, Hank's success didn't translate to even more wins. Loyola would have a disappointing 1989 season, with Kimball dealing with injuries, finishing 20-11 and getting blown out by Arkansas in the first round of the tournament. Some wondered whether that dominant run in 1988 was just a fluke. Was Westhead's offensive system really good enough to counteract the massive amount of points Loyola gave up on defense?
As the Dodge NIT heads out west, take a look at the shot clock. You probably won't see it count below 40 the rest of the night. Not if Paul Westhead has any say in the matter. His Lions would thrive on a 5-second clock. The top gun and Loyola Marymount scoring machine is senior Hank Gathers, the nation's leading scorer and rebounder last year.
All would be forgotten if Loyola started their 1990 season on the right foot in their season opener against preseason number 1 UNLV. Oh hey Jerry, it's been a while. 10 years after declining the Lakers job that ultimately led to Paul Westhead going to Loyola, Jerry is still coaching at UNLV. It's not like he's had a reason to leave. UNLV has been a perennial tournament team throughout the mid and late 80s and have won their conference the past 7 years. And now they're number 1. And Loyola is still that little team from California that plays really fast. Oh yeah, and the game was being held in UNLV's backyard of Las Vegas. It was no surprise what happened next.
Young in the corner. As Mike mentioned, he is a really good pure shooter. Johnson going to take it to the hoop, but he sees a lot of people after him. Spin move is there. Goes, not there. Jones with the board.
Good shooter.
Steamer fighting for the rebound. And that is going to do it. With UNLV winning 102-91. So as you see, some conversations going on. And I'm afraid those are not words of you played a good ball game. It's been a tough night. Neither of these clubs wanted to lose, but the Rebels have taken it.
A devastating punch in the mouth for a Loyola team looking to put itself on the radar on a national stage. UNLV simply did everything better than Loyola. Better fast break execution, better defensive structure including a zone defense, better shot selection. They held both Kimball and Gathers in check throughout the game, limiting them to 21 and 18 points respectively, while third option Jeff Fryer led the team with 23. Even a bomb threat in the first half helped UNLV by suppressing a quick, strong scoring run from Loyola. The Loyola Marymount Lions were backed into a corner, facing an onslaught of criticism and critique. But when a lion is backed into a corner, its only way out is to fight. Over the next 5 games, Loyola roared back to life and registered 5 straight wins, including a 145-102 blowout of Nevada, a 125-95 blowout of Stetson, and an absolutely insane scoreline of 152-137 over U.S. International. The team started looking like that team that turned heads in 1988, and Hank Gathers was back to his MVP-like form, with monstrous stat lines like a 38-point, 16-rebound game against Stetson, and an eye-dropping 37 points and 27 rebounds against U.S. International. However, the December 9th, 1989 game against UC Santa Barbara might have been the toughest performance out of all of them. With about 14 minutes left to play in the second half, Hank Gathers would collapse, with what would later be described as an abnormal heartbeat. While Gathers eventually got to his feet, he was unable to continue the rest of the game, leaving the offensive output solely up to Bo. With his best friend out of the contest and nobody else able to step up, Bo put the team on his back, dropping 51 total points, including sinking the final 2 free throws to ice the win for Loyola 104-101. With Hank out the next few weeks and games against number 21 Oregon State and number 7 Oklahoma looming, Bo Kimble was once again called into action. And once again, he delivered all he could. In the first match against Oregon State, and going up against future 9-time NBA All-Star Gary Payton, Bo was automatic, scoring 53 points on 78% shooting in Loyola's 117-113 win over the Beavers. Kimble was simply unguardable, as every player Oregon State tried to send his way couldn't stop him. Bo would follow up that performance with another enormous 46-point, 14-rebound performance in a 136-121 loss to Oklahoma. In Loyola's last 7 non-conference games, beginning with that performance against UC Santa Barbara, Kimble averaged an absurd 44.6 points per game and put up at least 50 points in 3 of those 7 games. Bo also led all scorers in 6 out of the 7 games, helping power his team to a 5-2 record, which included the aforementioned win over Oregon State, as well as wins over undefeated number 17 LaSalle and St. Joseph's. These crucial wins gave Loyola Marymount the respect they demanded from the AP voters, and on January 1st, 1990, Loyola Marymount would be ranked in the top 25 for the first time since the 1988 season. Throughout this superhuman-like stretch of games from Bo Kimble, I've neglected to talk much about the other star of this team, Hank Gathers. After receiving the diagnosis of an abnormal heartbeat, Hank was prescribed a beta blocker in order to manage his heartbeat rhythm. After returning to the court 3 weeks later, however, Hank could tell something was off about his game. He complained about feeling sluggish, and he wasn't able to play up to the level he had set last year as the West Coast Conference Player of the Year. After consulting with his doctors, Hank was able to get the 240 milligram dosage reduced to see if he was able to perform better while still reducing the risk of another collapse on the court. Even with the reduction in his dosage, Hank wasn't back to his old self. He still was able to gather rebounds and score, but his post presence wasn't felt as much as before. As Loyola Marymount began conference play and won their first 7 games in a row, Hank began to slowly ramp up his playing ability at the cost of a reduced dosage of his beta blocker and a greater risk of another collapse. But Hank wasn't focused on that. All he cared about was being the best he could be for the team, and maybe show some of his dominance in the process. Thankfully, the next game on the schedule was just the right game for Hank to prove he was back for good.
Welcome to the Pete Maravich Assembly Center in Baton Rouge, Louisiana. I'm James Brown along with Quinn Buckner, where today is the LSU Tigers hosting the Loyola Marymount Lions.
On February 3rd, 1990, Loyola Marymount traveled to Baton Rouge, Louisiana to take on the 14th-ranked LSU Tigers in a primetime, nationally televised game for CBS. LSU boasted its own talented team, including future NBA first-round picks Mahmoud Abdul-Rauf, Stanley Roberts, and a freshman Shaquille O'Neal. Both Roberts and Shaq formed one of the most formidable frontcourts in college basketball, not only in their height, but in their ability to score and rebound almost at will. If Loyola wanted any chance of winning this game, they needed Hank Gathers to put on the performance of a lifetime.
He has gotten a little bit out of sync.
Duvall had the ball stolen from behind. Gathers with the slam. And a 14-point lead. Gathers Coaches around the conference and the country say Chris Jackson's one of the best at shooting off the dribble as Hank Gathers drops in point number 23 for him. 14, LSU on top, 4:31 remaining in the contest.
Shaquille O'Neal has been the story. He's been blocking shots, rebounding.
Gathers continuing to challenge the big men as he scores the hoop and is fouled. 39 points scored so far by Hank Gathers. It's a Hank Gathers who's got 44 points. And Gathers.
It didn't matter that Loyola Marymount lost in overtime. It didn't matter that Shaq had a triple-double with 12 blocks. It didn't even matter that LSU shot an absurd 64% from the field. All that mattered for Loyola Marymount was that Hank Gathers was back. Hank and Shaq put on one of the greatest back-and-forth shows of the season, going at each other like it was the last time either player would be playing basketball. That triple-double that Shaq produced was overshadowed by the dominance Hank Gathers showed. A game-high 48 points to go along with 13 rebounds. The Hank Gathers of the past few games was gone, and in his place was the former West Coast Conference Player of the Year that Loyola Marymount had come to know the past few seasons. The national media once again had its eyes set on that often forgotten school from Los Angeles and its Philly-born stars. Gathers and the rest of Loyola Marymount didn't skip a beat after the loss to LSU. If anything, it fueled them knowing that they could hang with the best teams in the country. The Lions would go on to win 6 of their last 7 games in conference play, as Bo, Hank, and Jeff Fryer all shined throughout the games. Kimball had another 50-point outing and a 157-115 win against San Francisco, bringing the season total to an unheard of 4 50-point games. Gathers would go on to become the all-time points leader of the West Coast Conference, a record he still holds to this day. Jeff Fryer, the three-point sniper of the team, continued to show that the team didn't have to just rely on Gathers and Kimball, dropping a game-high 40 points in a win over Pepperdine. Loyola Marymount entered the postseason conference tournament looking like a dangerous team who could avenge that second-round exit in the 1988 NCAA tournament and make a deep run. Those dreams would have to wait for now, as Loyola Marymount was set to play its first game in the West Coast Conference tournament against last-place Gonzaga. On February 26, 1990, 6 days before Loyola was scheduled to play Gonzaga, Hank Gathers met with his cardiologist one last time to reduce the dosage of his beta blocker. By now, his dosage had decreased from the initial 240 milligrams to just 40 milligrams, but doctors were still worried about his irregular heartbeat and wanted to run tests on him to ensure his play wasn't affecting his heart. Throughout the week, Gathers dodged attempts to get him into the office for testing. One day before the Gonzaga game, on March 2nd, Gathers finally relented and went back to see his cardiologist. At this point, the testing couldn't be completed in time for next day's game, and Gathers and the cardiologist agreed that Hank could play in the tournament on the condition that he would immediately come for testing afterwards. The very next day, Loyola Marymount would easily dispatch Gonzaga, 121-84, the highest ever points scored in a game by a team in West Coast Conference tournament history. Hank would once again show his dominance, putting up a team-high 28 points to go along with 11 rebounds. Later that same day, the 4th-seeded Portland Pilots would defeat Santa Clara, setting up a semifinal against Loyola Marymount on the next day, March 4th. As the semifinal began, Loyola got out to another hot start, jumping out to an early 23-13 lead in the first 7.5 minutes of the contest. As Loyola ran out another fast break to extend their lead, sophomore guard Terrell Lowry threw up a half-court alley-oop pass to a waiting Hank Gathers, who emphatically slammed it home.
A classic, Hank Gathers slam dunk and running back down the court. It's not like we saw signs that he wasn't feeling so well. It just happened. Split second.
Hi, everybody. Welcome to CNN Sports Tonight. I'm Hannah Storm.
And I'm Gary Miller. We'll have all that action for you in the next half hour, but a story of tragic, just epic proportions that happened late this evening that's cast a pall over the sports world today.
It was truly shocking what happened. Loyola Marymount forward Hank Gathers died tonight after collapsing on the court in the first half of Loyola's game against Portland.
Hank Gathers, senior from Loyola Marymount, the 11th leading all-time scorer in NCAA history,
led the NCAA in scoring last year, led the NCAA in rebounding last year, collapsed during the first half of his LMU's WCC quarterfinal game in Los Angeles against Portland. At 6:55 West Coast time, he was pronounced dead at Daniel Freeman Marina Hospital.
He was our guy as a player and as a person. He was the leader of our team. He was the fiber of what we are.
I'm almost 100% certain that if he had 10 more seconds, this is the way that he would want to leave us on the basketball court.
Before the game in the locker room, Hank said, "I feel as strong as ever." And we just don't understand how a man that strong could leave us so quickly.
There aren't any words to describe the state of Loyola Marymount basketball after this moment. How do you even come back from such a tragedy? Your own teammate, the player you've been around for years, joked with, ate meals with, gone in an instant. Just 4 weeks ago, the heart and soul of your team re-emerged on the national stage, showing toughness and adversity to come back from his previous collapse, putting the team on his back just like he did in his Player of the Year season, and proving without a shred of doubt that he was back. There hadn't been any signs since then that Hank was close to another collapse. Why did it have to happen to him? The West Coast Conference tournament was later canceled. Loyola would get the conference auto bid for the NCAA tournament and would be placed in the West region as the 11th seed, set to play against 6th seed New Mexico State just 2 weeks after Hank's death. But as the days drew nearer, people began to ask how. How can a team who has gone through so much bounce back just 2 weeks later? How can Bo Kimble carry the team like he did months prior when he just lost his best friend? How could Loyola replace Hank Gathers? To the players of Loyola Marymount, replace was the wrong word. Hank wasn't replaceable. He wasn't a toy that you discard when it gets too old or boring. He wasn't a passerby you see only to never see again. To replace Hank was to forget every single thing Hank stood for, every single memory he made, and every single person he touched through basketball. How could Loyola Marymount honor Hank Gathers? Every player on that team vowed to play their heart out, like it was the last time they'd ever step foot on the basketball court. They vowed to show the same toughness and adversity that Hank did on the same national stage that he showed it. Hank may be gone, but to Loyola Marymount, he would never be forgotten. There isn't much available footage out there from this game between Loyola Marymount and New Mexico State. But fortunately, there are 2 clips from this game that show the intensity, passion, and emotion Loyola played with throughout this NCAA tournament. The first is this 5-second sequence in play where Loyola scores 8 points. First from a 3, then a steal for a layup, and finally a forced turnover that results in another 3. The second is this free throw from Bo Kimble. I'll let the man himself explain why.
I'm going to shoot my first free throw left-handed, and it's because Hank Gathers tried so hard to improve on his left hand, and it's a remembrance of Hank. It was something I want to do for this year.
And as you heard him say before we took a timeout, Bo is going to take his first free throw left-handed in honor of his friend, Hank Gathers.
Well, excuse me, I was a terrible free throw shooter, but that one looked good from the time it left his hand.
An amazing young man, and one right-handed for good measure.
Loyola would go on to win the game 111-92 and advance to the round of 32 to play 3-seeded Michigan. Kimble, just 2 weeks removed from losing his best friend, put on a performance Hank would be proud of, scoring a team-high 45 points and grabbing a team-high 18 rebounds. New second option Jeff Fryer stepped up to the stage as well, scoring 23 points. But regardless of how good Loyola looked, Michigan wouldn't be a pushover. They were the reigning national champions, and boasted a very strong and experienced team led by second-team All-American guard Romeo Robinson. It would take a historic performance out of Loyola to advance to the Sweet 16.
Talk about setting some tempo. Here's Jeff Pryor out of the corner. Jeff Pryor for three.
Got a little more offense with Jeff.
Here's Pryor out of the corner.
Little offense with Jeff, folks.
Pryor open top of the key. Pryor drains another three, and it's 33-24. Romeo Robinson beginning to heat up. He has 9, but here come the Lions. Jeff Pryor is on fire here in the first half. He has 21.
What you are seeing here is all 11 threes made by Jeff Pryor against Michigan, an NCAA tournament record. Pryor would go on to lead all players in scoring, notching 41 points in a blowout 149-115 win against Michigan. This point total of 149 is the most points any team has put up in an NCAA tournament game, and the combined score of 264 points is also the highest total combined points in an NCAA tournament game. Loyola once again showed their absolute dominance over Michigan, shooting over 50% from the field and from three-point range, while also hitting 85% of their free throws. And once again, Bo Kimball's left-handed free throw looked almost effortless as he sank the shot, just like how Hank used to do it. Loyola were looking like the dangerous team everybody had predicted in the preseason. Sure, their defense still gave up a lot of points, but against Michigan, they still forced 27 turnovers. And their offense was firing on all cylinders and seemingly couldn't be stopped. Which is why this game is so baffling. At the start of this video, I said that something felt off about this game. You could point to the missing graphics, the low score, the abnormal amount of missed shots by both teams, or the fact that Bo Kimball had yet to take a free throw. All of these are valid points, but the biggest missing factor in this game was Hank Gathers. When Loyola needed a bucket, Hank provided it. When Loyola needed someone to hype up the team, Hank was the leader. When Loyola needed someone to make a play to win the game, you know Hank would throw his body on the line. Hank wasn't the best defender, only averaging about a block a game, but he never shied away from contesting a shot. That was just the type of player he was. I like to think that in this final moment, where someone needed to make a clutch play to seal the win for Loyola, Hank's defensive presence came in clutch one last time.
Got it, Perkins.
Loyola now moved on to the Elite Eight. One more win and they would make it to the Final Four, their first ever in their program's history, and 3 wins would give them the national championship. What a fitting ending it would be for a team that already had to deal with the most hardships, who were scrutinized at every step of their journey. A tale of never giving up and always persevering regardless of the obstacles life throws at you. For Loyola Marymount, one more obstacle remained before the Final Four. Unfortunately for them, not all obstacles are the same. Their obstacle is an all too familiar one, an obstacle that's always been around since their story began, now looking to be there when their story ends.
Off now quickly to Hunt. It's a 3-on-2, and Hunt pulls up the 3. Down the defensive board into Walker's hand. Coming through and shifts, deflected Anthony. Loose ball, tracked down Vegas. Here comes Ogman. Lowry pulls it up, hits another one. 2 quick ones in a row. And just like that, the Lions climb back in it. With the miss, run down for the loose ball. Johnson comes up with a handle. A long baseball pass. Oh, what a beautiful pass. And so now, once again, Bo Kimball will move to the line in honor of his late teammate, Hank Gathers. He'll shoot this first one, left-handed. He is perfect. The other end is Hunt. Rebound Steamer. Off to Kimball. 2 in a row for Bo Kimball to start the second half. Johnson inside. Still no answer for that little turnaround. Lowry! Great block by Hunt. Came from nowhere. Knocked that one down. And the other way, and he goes down, and how's that play with it? Kimball. Short, long rebound, and it's Hunt coming out. Johnson's on his left.
That's it. Season over. Dream squashed. Guess the run and gun couldn't outrun the running Rebels once again. Paul Westhead was never meant to be the first choice over Jerry Tarkanian. Bo Kimball was never meant to be a one-man show. Loyola Marymount was never meant to be a champion. College basketball is so cruel. For every NCAA championship, one team is crowned the winner, but that means 67 other teams are losers. It doesn't matter who you are, what you've done, or the story you are trying to tell. One loss, and it's over. For most perennial tournament teams, a loss in the tournament is just that, a loss. They'll most likely be back next year, and will try their hand once again. But for a Cinderella team like Loyola Marymount, that's it. Their one shot at glory is gone. The clock struck midnight on them, and their story is left to be told by generations who never got to experience the magic. Their legacy is just a footnote on some page in a history book as a fun fact. Loyola Marymount is just like the rest of them. The 1990 season was their one shot at glory. Bo, Hank, Jeff, all of their main contributors were seniors. Maybe if they didn't happen to run into a buzzsaw UNLV squad, they would have won the whole tournament. We'll never know. There wasn't a next year. That was it. And it was fun while it lasted. But time was up. Their legacy is just a team that scored a lot and played super fast. At least, that would be their legacy, if it weren't for Hank Gathers. Because Hank meant more than just being a great scorer on a fast team. Hank meant more than an NBA prospect whose life was tragically cut short. Hank was a leader, a competitor, a friend, and a brother. He was someone who always wanted to win and wanted to put a smile on your face while doing so. He was someone who always cared about how you were doing, looking to help in any way possible. He was the little kid in all of us who just wanted to follow his dreams with a sense of joy that only those who truly love something know of. He was Hank Gathers. But to Loyola Marymount, Hank Gathers truly represented the best in all of them. It's why fans of the team still lovingly nicknamed their home court Hank's House. It's why his retired jersey number still sits center court next to his best friend Bo's number. It's why, even after 30 years have passed, it's still hard for many people to forget about the impact he made on them. And his impact is still felt outside of the Loyola Marymount faithful. Time and time again, we are unfortunately reminded of how fragile life can be, how things can change in an instant. But in the moments after that, life finds a way to be beautiful. We see the miraculous comebacks of those who felt the fragility of life. We find more ways to try and prevent these tragedies before they happen. We marvel at the ability to fight back and to make your presence known on the national stage. When life throws everything and more at you, there's always a way to get back up and show the strength, heart, and courage of a lion. On March 3rd, 2011, just one day before the 21st anniversary of Hank Gathers' death, Fenville High School standout Wes Leonard hit the game-winning shot against Bridgman to cap off a perfect 20-0 regular season for Fenville. Moments later, as the rest of the team was celebrating, Leonard would collapse from a cardiac arrest due to an enlarged heart and would be pronounced dead hours later. 4 days later, on March 7th, a now 43-year-old Bo Kimball would meet with the Fenville team to talk about the importance of not forgetting Leonard, just like how he and his teammates never forgot about Hank Gathers. In a strikingly similar fashion to the 1990 Loyola Marymount team, Fenville would go on to win their next 3 games in the Class C tournament before ultimately losing their 4th game to the eventual tournament champions.
Took a ride to my place on the West End, so I could think about the life I was living, so I could think back to days where I couldn't want more than just happiness. Remember being that kid on the first day that always hated that it was the first day. But that's the day that we met, and it's kinda crazy how quickly we made a mess. 'Cause we got so caught up, and we kept having fun, and we kept growing up, and I say you made me who I am. Remember taking a drive to the mountains, remember singing the stupidest songs, and remember dancing around the apartment laughing 'cause I couldn't dance a bit, but we danced all night long. We danced all night long, my friend. Guess we ran out of songs, boy, I haven't seen you in a bit. But we gon' be alright. 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 Remember time and place, we'll be fine.
Is it true, now you guys are both from Philadelphia, both went to Dobbins Tech. Is it true that after the first scrimmage at Dobbins Tech, you had a fight?
Yeah, that's true. We had to get to know each other, and we thought that the physical thing would be the best way.
Can I ask who won?
Go ahead.
I won.
Go ahead.
Did you really?
Yeah, I'll let both.
Oh, okay.
No,
Go ahead.
It was just because of the competitiveness in practice. We just wouldn't give each other the edge, and we were competing for a spot, and that's why we're good competitors today.
Are you conscious of the fact that at 6'7", you may be odd-sized for the NBA?
Oh, yeah, that's been on my mind lately, but that doesn't bother me because I have a heart the size of a lion, any lion, and I'm just going to go in there and try to be competitive and score points any way they come.